मीडिया वेस तो खबरां दा लेखा जोखा प्रोग्राम दे विच आप सब दा स्वागत है जी एन
Khabran Da Lekha Jokha, August 2nd, 2024 has been sponsored by Hanif Litigation. Any criminal or regulatory law matters, contact lawyer Shahid Hanif at 604-626-3144. BC works back part of personal use eviction notice period changes. The provincial government says that after receiving feedback from industry stakeholders, the newly changed personal use eviction notice period has been walked back from 4 months to 3 months. In a statement released Thursday, the Ministry of Housing says it is amending the notice period to help would-be first-time home buyers while ensuring that tenants have more than 2 months' notice to find new housing. Since the amendments came into force, government has listened to feedback from industry stakeholders that a 4-month notice period could prevent first-time buyers from purchasing a tenanted property, particularly for those under Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation programs which require the property to be vacant at possession, the ministry said. In addition, a 4-month notice period may not align with the purchaser's mortgage commitment, which could expire prior to the closing date. There is a CHMC requirement that purchasers with insured mortgages must take possession upon closing, which requires vacancy of the property. The extended notice period could have an impact on these requirements and potentially disqualifying them from financing, it continued. In response to this feedback, government is taking action by amending the regulation to allow notice period of 3 months and dispute period of 21 days for when a landlord issues a notice to end tenancy on behalf of the purchaser. The new notice period will be effective August 21st, 2024. Vancouver realtor Steve Saratsky said that the update rules are smart. Clearly, they put a policy in place without any consultation from the industry, which is a bit odd. He said, I think it was a much needed change. Sadesky explained that the 4-month notice period affected home buyers with bank loans. Banks will typically do a 120-day mortgage financing commitment. So if you're giving notice, let's say I give you notice today, the clock starts ticking September 1st. So that's basically almost a 5-month wait time until you can get vacant possessions as a home buyer. No bank is going to give you that long of a mortgage commitment, Saratsky said. He explained the rules effectively asked a buyer to purchase a home without secured financing, making them take a huge risk. Let's say you are a first-time buyer and you're going through the mortgage insurance program. You're putting down less than 20%. You're not allowed to inherit the rent of tenants. That's a federal regulation, he explained. They want you to move into it, and if you need to move into it, you need to give the tenant the appropriate notice, which means you can't close in that property for a minimum of 4 months. But again, no bank is going to give you a commitment longer than 120 days. So really the regulations they brought in didn't account for or didn't factor in financing requirements. Saratsky believes 3 months notice is a happy medium. He doesn't think there was necessarily anything wrong with the previous 2-month requirement. But at least with the 3-month period, you can actually get financing commitment from banks. The province explains landlords who intend to personally move into the rental properties or have a close family member move in will still be required to give tenants 4 months' notice if they are ending the tenancy. Tenants of these properties also still have 30 days to dispute landlord antes. The person moving into the home must occupy it for a minimum of 12 months, and landlords who evict in bad faith could be ordered to pay the displaced tenant 12 months rent, the ministry said.
ਇਹ ਤਬਦੀਲੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ BC ਸੂਬਾ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਜਦ ਰਹੇ ਘਰ ਦੀ ਖਰੀਦੋ ਫਰੋਖਤ ਦੇ ਔਰ ਨਵੇਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਲੈਂਡਲੋਰਡ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦੀ ਫਾਈਨੈਂਸਿੰਗ ਨੂੰ ਦੇ ਲੈਣ ਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਮਾਂਬੰਦੀ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਰੋਲ ਅਦਾ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ 4 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦਾ ਸੀ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ। 4 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦਾ ਨੋਟਿਸ ਹੁਣ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਘਟਾ ਕੇ 3 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦਾ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਮਸਲੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵਧੇ ਸਨ ਉਦੋਂ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ 2 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦਾ ਨੋਟਿਸ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਵਧਾ ਕੇ 4 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦਾ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਦਾ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਕੁ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵ ਪੈ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ, ਇਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵੀ ਸਵਾਲ ਉੱਠਦੇ ਹੈ। ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ 120 ਦਿਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਸਲਾ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਅਗਰ ਚੰਗੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਜਾਵੇ ਤਾਂ 3 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਹੈ ਐਟਲੀਸਟ ਕੁਝ ਕੁ ਨਵੇਂ ਖਰੀਦਦਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਵਕਤ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਦੇ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ।
Man dies after shooting in Langley. IHET called in. The Lower Mainland's homicide team has been called in after a man was killed in Langley early Friday morning. The Langley RCMP says just after midnight, Mounties were called to 202 B Street between 70A Avenue and 68A Avenue in the Willoughby neighborhood after reports of gunfire. As officers were responding, an additional report was received of 2 men suffering from gunshot wounds at the hospital. One of the men has succumbed to his injuries, Corporal Craig Van Herk said in a statement Friday. Police say evidence is still being gathered. However, officers believe the shooting to be an isolated incident. Mounties said 202 Street will be closed while police investigate. The integrated homicide team has been called in to investigate the fatal shooting. Police are urging anyone with information about the killing to call the IHET information line at 1-877-551-IHET or email by ihetinfo@rcmp-grc.gc.ca.
ਲੈਂਗਲੀ ਵਿਖੇ 202 ਸਟਰੀਟ ਤੇ 68 ਤੇ 70 ਦੇ ਦਰਮਿਆਨ ਗੋਲੀਆਂ ਚੱਲੀਆਂ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ 2 ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਜ਼ਖਮੀ ਹੋਏ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਦੀ ਮੌਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਇੱਕ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਸਖਤ ਜ਼ਖਮੀ ਹਸਪਤਾਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜ਼ੇਰੇ ਇਲਾਜ ਹੈ। ਪਰ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਕਿਸੇ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਦੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਹੋਣ ਦੀ ਸੂਰਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਪਰਕ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ।
Canadian men's basketball team improves to 3-0 at Olympics with win over Spain. The Canadian men's basketball team is heading to the Olympic quarterfinals with momentum on its side. Canada 3-0 clinched first place in Group A with an 88-85 win over Spain on Friday at Paris 2024. The quarterfinals are next Tuesday. Spain 1-2 was eliminated with the loss. Tied 19-19 after one quarter, Canada took charge by outscoring Spain 30-19 in the second quarter. Spain made a furious charge to get within 1 in the fourth quarter but couldn't fully erase the deficit. Toronto Raptors guard forward RJ Barrett hit a huge 3 in the final minute to extend Canada's lead to 5. Shai Gilgeous-Alexandra led Canada with 20 points. Andrew Nembhard added 18 off the bench.
ਓਲੰਪਿਕ ਵਿਖੇ ਮੈਨਸ ਬਾਸਕਟਬਾਲ ਟੀਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਟੀਮ ਨੇ ਜਿੱਤ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਕੀਤੀ, ਸ਼ਾਨਦਾਰ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਔਰ ਸਪੇਨ ਨੂੰ ਹਰਾ ਕੇ ਔਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੁਕਾਮ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਫੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਤਕੜਾ ਬਣਾ ਲਿਆ।
Multiple sailings waits for BC Ferry sailings to Vancouver Island. If you're headed to Vancouver Island for the long weekend, you might have a very long day ahead of you if you don't have a reservation. The busiest weekend of the year for BC Ferries is well underway, and sailing from the Lower Mainland to Vancouver Island are seeing multiple sailing waits depending on your route. As of 6 a.m. Friday, Horseshoe Bay to Departure Bay sailings were full until 4 p.m. Tuason to Duke Point was seeing a multiple sailing wait with boats full of for those without a reservation into the afternoon. And if you're headed to Swartz Bay from Tuason without a reservation as of 6 a.m., you'll be waiting for at least 4 sailings to pass before your turn. On Thursday, Lisa Yazda with BC Ferries explained that anyone without a reservation will see a bit of a wait. It is busy, busy, busy. This is typically BC Ferries' busiest long weekend of the year, and clearly that has proven true already, said Yazda. We are expecting more than 215,000 vehicles and more than 600,000 passengers during this period. She says they are also expecting heavy volume heading back to the lower mainland on Monday and Tuesday, adding that many weekends through the rest of August are also expected to be very busy. If you don't have a reservation, Yazda recommends you check the current conditions before you head to the terminal so you can figure out which route will work best for you. She says travelers should expect even more busy weekends coming before the summer ends. If you really want to look at booking a reservation, if you're planning on traveling between now and the start of the school year, that is a way that you know that you're going to get where you want to be when you want to be there, said Yazda.
BC ferries ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਬਾਵਾ ਰਸ਼ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਲੌਂਗ ਵੀਕਐਂਡ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸਵੇਰੇ 6 ਵਜੇ ਸਮਾਂਬੰਦੀ ਦੇ ਮੁਤਾਬਕ 4 ਵਜੇ ਤੱਕ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਫੈਰੀ ਸਨ ਉਹ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਬੁੱਕ ਸਨ। ਯਾਦ ਰਹੇ ਇਸ ਲੌਂਗ ਵੀਕਐਂਡ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਰਿਜ਼ਰਵੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਐਡਵਾਂਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਿਜ਼ਰਵੇਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਹਦਾਇਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਵੀਕਐਂਡ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ 6 ਲੱਖ ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਯਾਤਰੀ ਨੇ ਉਹ BC ਫੈਰੀਜ਼ ਦੀ ਵਰਤੋਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ 2,15,000 ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ ਗੱਡੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ BC ਫੈਰੀਜ਼ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਥਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਦੂਜੀ ਥਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਰਿਜ਼ਰਵੇਸ਼ਨ ਬੈਸਟ ਚਾਂਸ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅਗਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਿਜ਼ਰਵੇਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੋਈ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਈ ਘੰਟੇ ਇੰਤਜ਼ਾਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ।
Abbotsford PD issues warning about 2 gang conflict members posing significant public safety link. The Abbotsford Police Department is warning the public after the release of 2 men who it says are connected to the BC gang conflict. Police say Anmol Sandhu and Navpreet Taliwal pose a significant risk to public safety. Back in February, Sandhu and Taliwal were charged with conspiracy to commit murder and taken into custody. They have since also been charged with trafficking a controlled substance and firearms offences. According to the Abbotsford Police Department, the men were granted bail on Wednesday. The pair remain under house arrest with electronic monitoring and must remain in West Abbotsford. They are not allowed to possess any weapons and they are prohibited from using social media or owning and using cell phones. The monitoring of these men will be led by the Abbotsford Police Department's Gang Crime Unit, assisted by our Criminal Investigative Branch and Patrol Officers. Sergeant Paul Walker, Media Relations Officer, said in a news release. Anyone who sees either of these men violating any of their court-ordered conditions is asked to call Abbotsford Police Department at 604-859-5225 or call 911 in the case of an emergency.
Abbotsford Police Department ਨੇ ਦੋ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਨੇ ਸੰਧੂ ਤੇ ਧਾਲੀਵਾਲ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਿ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੇ ਗੈਂਗ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਕਨਫਲਿਕਟ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਆਮ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਚੇਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਖਤਰਾ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੁੱਧਵਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਬੇਲ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਗਈ ਸੀ ਔਰ ਇਲੈਕਟ੍ਰੋਨਿਕ ਮੋਨੀਟਰ ਦੇ ਮਦਦ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੀਮਤ ਏਰੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੈਸਟ ਐਬਸਫੋਰਡ ਦੇ ਏਰੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿਣ ਦੀਆਂ ਹਦਾਇਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਸ਼ਰਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਦੀ ਉਲੰਘਣਾ ਅਗਰ ਇਹ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਐਬਸਫੋਰਡ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਡਿਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਸੰਪਰਕ ਕਰੋ।
Ottawa says Meta may still see Online News Act regulation, but CRTC wants more proof. The Liberal government continues to insist that Meta may still be regulated under its Online News Act, as Facebook and Instagram users find loopholes to share articles despite its news ban. But the regulator overseeing the implementation of the law suggests it doesn't have evidence of that in hand. The Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission acknowledges reports that claim Meta still makes news available, but says it would require further evidence to take further action. Meta began blocking news on Facebook and Instagram in Canada after Parliament passed a law last summer that would have required it to compensate media outlets for displaying their content. A year into the ban, a new study shows local news outlets have been a significant drop in their audience while Meta itself has seemingly been unaffected. The CRTC says it's the company's responsibility to inform the regulator if it fails under the law, and Meta hasn't done so.
ਮੈਟਾ ਦੇ ਅਧੀਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਫੇਸਬੁੱਕ ਤੇ ਇੰਸਟਾਗ੍ਰਾਮ ਆ, ਉੱਥੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਸ਼ਰ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ CRTC ਦੇ ਅਧੀਨ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਆਊਟਲੈਟਸ ਨੇ, ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕਿ ਖਬਰਸਾਰ ਆਮ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਉਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਤਰਾਜ਼ ਫਿਰ ਜ਼ਾਹਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ 1 ਸਾਲ ਦਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਲੰਘ ਜਾਣ ਤੋਂ ਉਪਰੰਤ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਾਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰੀ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਮੈਟਾ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਜਾਰੀ ਹੈ।
Google to charge new fee on ads in response to Canada's digital services tax. Google says it will pass on the cost of the Liberal government digital services tax to advertisers. The company says it will implement a 2.5% surcharge for ads displayed in Canada starting in October. Digital services taxes increase the cost of digital advertising, a Google spokesperson said in a statement. They said the surcharge is to cover part of the cost associated with complying with the tax. The tax approved in Parliament in June will add a 3% levy on foreign tech giants that generate revenue from Canadian users. A trade group representing Canadian advertisers has warned other companies could follow Google's lead. This will increase the cost of running ads on Google and will likely spur similar action on the part of other platforms if they decide to follow suit. The Interactive Advertising Bureau of Canada said on its website last week. The digital services tax has drawn opposition from trade associations and businesses groups in the United States, where many of the tech giants are based. The Computer and Communications Industry Association, which represents big tech companies including Amazon, Apple, and Uber, previously called on US President Joe Biden's administration to take formal steps under the US-Mexico-Canada agreement. The Information Technology Industry Council, whose membership includes Google, Meta, Apple, and Amazon, also urged the Biden administration to immediately address Canada's measure that targets US companies and attempts to ring-fence the digital economy. It said in a statement last month the tax sends a damaging blow to Canada's partnership with allies, the business community, and Canadian consumers who will likely bear the burden of this tax. The Office of the United States Trade Representative said in July it is open to using all available tools to halt the tax. The Google spokesperson said Thursday the company would continue to pay all the taxes due in Canada and elsewhere, and we encourage governments globally to focus on international tax reform rather than implementing unilateral levies. The Liberals first promised the tax in 2019 election when the Conservatives and NDP also pledged a similar measure. The levy was then delayed for years due to global efforts to establish a broader multinational taxation plan. But following a significant delays to that process at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, Canada went ahead with its own tax. Other countries have brought in similar tools to tax the profits of larger multinational companies in the digital sector. A spokesperson for Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland said Canada's preference has always been a multilateral agreement. Canada strongly supports international efforts to end the corporate tax race to the bottom and to ensure that all corporations, including the world's largest corporations, pay their fair share. Catherine Coplin-Curses said in a statement. The Canadian government has been clear for several years that it would move forward with its own digital services tax if a global agreement is not reached. Unfortunately, despite best efforts, repeated deadlines to reach an international agreement have come and gone.
ਇਹ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਗੂਗਲ ਵਰਗੀਆਂ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਵੱਡੇ ਪੱਧਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਪ੍ਰਦਾਨ ਕਰਦੀਆਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਟੈਕਸ ਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਏ ਗਏ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਫੈਸਲੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਗੂਗਲ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਲਗਾਏ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਟੈਕਸ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਐਡਵਰਟਾਈਜ਼ਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹ 2.5% ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸ਼ਿਫਟ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਔਰ ਇਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਚਰਚਾ ਵੱਡੀ ਪੱਧਰ ਤੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਦੇ ਡਿਜੀਟਲ ਜ਼ਮਾਨੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਡਿਜੀਟਲ ਐਡਵਰਟਾਈਜ਼ਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਦੌਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ 2.5% ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਟੈਕਸ ਹੈ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਅਗਰਾਹੀ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ।
Pisach Hospital ER announces it will be open over long weekend after all. The Pisach Hospital's emergency department will be open all long weekend after all. Shortly after announcing a temporary closure over the long weekend, Fraser Health put out a statement saying all emergency physicians, shifts have now been filled, keeping the facility open. We work to fill vacant shifts until the very last moment, Fraser Health said in a news release. Service adaptations and patient diversions are only used as a last resort when all other options have been exhausted. We want to assure the community that we are supporting our emergency physicians by addressing physician staffing challenges. We are working on sustainment plans to prevent any service adaptations to ensure continuous, safe and timely care for White Rock residents and the surrounding areas.
ਪੀਚਰਚ ਹਸਪੀਟਲ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਐਲਾਨਨਾਮੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸੀ ਲੌਂਗ ਵੀਕਐਂਡ ਤੇ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਡਾਕਟਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਮੀ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ, ਸਟਾਫ ਦੀ ਕਮੀ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਉਹ ਹਸਪਤਾਲ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ER ਹੈ, ਐਮਰਜੈਂਸੀ ਡਿਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ, ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਬੰਦ ਰੱਖਣਗੇ। ਪਰ ਪੂਰੇ ਦੇ ਪੂਰੇ ਸਟਾਫ ਦੀ ਪੂਰਤੀ ਤੋਂ ਉਪਰੰਤ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਲੌਂਗ ਵੀਕਐਂਡ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵਾਈਟ ਰੌਕ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਆਸ-ਪਾਸ ਦੇ ਇਲਾਕਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਪ੍ਰਦਾਨ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਉਹ ਖੁੱਲੇ ਰਹਿਣਗੇ।
Penticton City Council arrested and charged with multiple sex offences. A Penticton City Councillor was arrested Thursday and has been charged with sexual assault. James Miller has been charged with 2 counts of sexual interference and 2 counts of sexual assault of a person under 16. These offences occurred during a period when the accused volunteered as a youth basketball coach, Sarnia police said in a news release. The victim, now an adult, was a young person at that time. The Sarnia police says Miller was arrested by the Penticton RCMP. He will be appearing by video in Sarnia court on today's date, they said Thursday morning. According to the City of Penticton website, Miller was elected to council in 2021. He is currently the managing editor of the Penticton Herald.
Penticton ਦੇ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰ ਨੂੰ ਸੈਕਸ਼ੂਅਲ ਅਸੌਲਟ ਦੇ ਦੋਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਤਹਿਤ ਅਰੈਸਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਔਰ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਕੇਸ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਰਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਏਗਾ। ਯਾਦ ਰਹੇ ਕਿ 2021 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੈਂਟਿਕਟਨ ਸਿਟੀ ਕਾਉਂਸਲ ਦਾ ਚੁਣਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ।
8 charges relating to alleged drug trafficking operation across Lower Mainland. 8 people have been charged after an investigation into an alleged drug trafficking operation across the Lower Mainland. Police say 5 men and 3 women are facing a total of 31 charges after a joint operation between the Langley RCMP and the province's anti-gang agency, the Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit of BC. Starting in December 2022, the 2 agencies began a joint investigation that led to a number of searches being conducted in Richmond, Coquitlam, Surrey and Langley between April and May of 2023. The searches resulted in the 8 arrests and the seizure of cash, weapons, vehicles and drug making supplies. Police seized a number of drugs including fentanyl with a street value of $3.47 million and MDMA worth $2.96 million. This investigation resulted in the disruption and individuals charged in an alleged drug trafficking operation of an organized crime group manufacturing and trafficking potentially deadly synthetic drugs such as fentanyl in our communities, said Inspector Todd Thomas, Senior Investigating Officer of the CFS EUBC. Our mandate and ability to work with our partner agencies to investigate across multiple jurisdictions allows us to target gang members and groups who impact public safety in multiple communities and hold them accountable for the harm they bring to our communities. All but one of those arrested have been released pending their scheduled court date on August 14. 131-year-old man remains in custody.
ਰਿਚਮੰਡ, ਸਰੀ, ਲੈਂਗਲੀ ਤੇ ਆਸ-ਪਾਸ ਦੇ ਇਲਾਕਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਛਾਪੇ ਮਾਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਉਪਰੰਤ 8 ਵਿਅਕਤੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਸ਼ੀਲੇ ਪਦਾਰਥ ਵੇਚਣ ਤੇ ਉਹਦੀ ਤਸਕਰੀ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਮਾਮਲੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਬਾਕੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਸਟਡੀ ਤੋਂ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਗਏ ਨੇ, ਪਰ ਇੱਕ 34 ਸਾਲਾ ਅਜੇ ਵੀ ਕਸਟਡੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈ। ਯਾਦ ਰਹੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮਲਟੀ ਮਿਲੀਅਨਸ ਆਫ ਡਾਲਰਸ ਦੀ ਫੈਂਟਨਲ ਤੇ ਨਸ਼ੀਲੇ ਪਦਾਰਥਾਂ ਦੀ ਤਸਕਰੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਖਰੀਦੋ ਫਰੋਖਤ ਤੇ ਵੇਚਣ ਦੀ ਕਾਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰੀ ਵਰਗੇ ਦੋਸ਼ਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਸਾਹਮਣਾ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ।
इसी के साथ हमें दीजिएगा इजाजत। खबरा द लेखा जोखा प्रोग्राम से until next time, goodbye and be safe.